This is the second of my reports on the election campaign in my constituency in Hayes and Harlington. It's a bit delayed because we've been so busy this week. I should have done it earlier in the week, but it's been really hectic. We've been knocking on people's doors. By the end of this week, we've knocked on about 2/3 of the houses and properties in the area, and by the end of next week we'll have knocked on every door in the constituency. I'm out every day, morning, afternoon and evening, with my teams. I'm in every street. We're knocking on people's doors. We're spending time talking to people. It isn't just about asking people how they're going to vote. We're also spending lots of time talking to people. So I'm meeting literally hundreds of people a day, which is great. It is just really invigorating. And it's friendly, warm, lots of banter, quite a few laughs as well. People are pleased to see me. I'm meeting lots of people who over the years I've worked with and known, lots of people whose problems I've dealt with, cases I've dealt with, a lot of casework that we picked up over the years. Quite a few people who've been involved in a number of the community groups that I've set up and some of the community campaigning that I've undertaken, and they've participated in my campaign. So that's really good, reassuring. Meeting people, some people I haven't seen for a while because they've dropped out of activity or they've moved on or they've changed properties, that sort of thing. That's just nice to touch base with them again. What's coming up on the doorstep? All the usual stuff. Lots of concerns about the health service, concerns about access to their local doctors' practices, worries about Hillingdon Hospital and its future, lots of praise for the staff, but worries about the physical fabric of the building. Real concerns coming up as well about home care. Home help's under an awful lot of pressure. Not having enough time to care for people. All privatised now. A lot of them on fairly low pay. As I say, under intense pressure, want to do a decent job. But I'm worried in this area now that we've got lots of isolated elderly people. Lack of support from the local authority. As I say, home help's all privatised. I'm concerned. I'm deeply concerned now that there's real neglect of our elderly who are in desperate need of home care. And it's something we've got to really address. And it's something that is now got to be a priority for all of us. Other issues, housing goes on. I'm meeting so many people living with their families in appalling housing conditions. Dreadful landlords, many dreadful landlords, charging high rents, not investing in their properties, not maintaining their properties, and some of them quite intimidating with their tenants. I'm compiling a list of those landlords. I'm going to take them on. And again, I'm going to be saying to local authorities and others who are using them that these landlords should not be allowed to house tenants because of the condition of the properties and the way in which they treat their tenants. The other issue that's coming up is, well, people are worried about public services generally. Firefighters have had their pensions under attack from the government. Police officers worried about the cuts in the number of jobs, and the Safer Neighbourhood team's been run down as a result of not enough police officers on the ground. Health workers generally just worried about what's happening within the health service and how much pressure that they're under. Teachers concerned about the pressure they're under, but also rising class sizes. So really concrete concerns. Interesting enough, on the bus the other day, I travel about on the bus quite a bit locally, and we had a debate among people on the bus about the cutback in one of those basic local authority services, which is where the council, a Conservative council, have basically closed our local recycling centre. I opened it in the 1980s under the GLC. They privatised it, and now they're no longer using it. And what's happening is, as a result of that, we've got nowhere to take our rubbish, so fly tipping and dumping is taking place. And it's just one of those cuts in local authority expenditure which is having a knock-on effect and undermining our local environment. And on the bus it was quite interesting. A woman got up and said, "I'm voting for John because he's been helping us on tackling this issue in our street." And another one got up and said, "Oh yeah, it's happening in ours as well." And we're having a real debate on the bus. It was about a 15-minute bus journey, and we're having a real debate on the bus about how we tackle it. That's the sort of street and bus politics that I'm really enjoying, that I'm into, and always have been participating in. The issues that you'd expect to come up, like immigration, has come up a few times, but we're a multicultural, diverse society in this area, and people rub along together pretty well. And when you have that debate about immigration, it's interesting. People in our area respect and understand what our different groups of people that have come to there have contributed. And again, when we get down to issues around housing supply, pressure on public services, people are quite realistic about it, about actually it's nothing to do with immigration as such. It's more about investment in those public services. And the reason we've got a housing crisis is because we haven't built housing houses. The reason rents are so high is because we don't control rents. Simple as that. So there's a real proper discussion about that. And it does need taking head on. And when we have that debate, people are extremely sensible and rational about the way forward. I'm getting a whole range of issues thrown at me on the doorstep around austerity. People are quite angry that we've had to pay for the crisis that we never caused with cuts in public services, whilst the bankers' bonuses are back. In addition to that, people are raising the issue of taxation with me. The message has got across about the rich corporations and the rich individuals who are not paying their taxes whilst everyone else is, and how we deal with that. All the three main political parties now are raising that as an issue but not really addressing it effectively. Labour's come out the best of this, I think, in terms of the sort of objectives that they're setting, the scale of tax avoidance and evasion that they want to address. But it's nowhere near what the Tax Justice Network is telling us, which is saying £120 billion a year lost through tax evasion, tax avoidance. So that's an issue that has to be addressed. And I think people on the doorstep are pretty angry that they feel they're being ripped off by these people and these organisations, these corporations not paying their way. So again, it's a good debate on that. Haven't seen much evidence of the Conservatives, Liberals or UKIP in our area. Few leaflets going out, but not much more than that. And when the UKIP issue does come on the doorstep, usually we can have a discussion about their role, and people realise that they're exploiting divisions within our society. And I think people get quite angry about some of the statements from Farage, particularly around the issue around the HIV patients, which I think people were pretty disgusted at. In terms of the Conservatives, there's been a real reaction against Cameron not turning up in some of the television debates. In terms of Labour, it's interesting. Months ago, I was getting in political discussions locally and on the doorstep work that we were doing then, concerns about Ed Miliband. He's not a leader, he's weak, that sort of thing. That's all gone now. That's dissipated. I don't get that at all at the moment, and I think that's because they've seen him on the TV debates and they've realised there's more to him than what the Sun and the other newspaper headlines were all about, the Daily Mail, those sort of papers that were always slagging him off. I think people have seen beyond that now and seen actually he has got some decent ideas and he's prime ministerial material. So I think it's interesting. I don't think the press will have as much influence on this general election as they've had before, largely I think because they're mainly discredited because of all the hacking trials and what's happened under Murdoch. So I think we're having a much more rational debate. Anyway, I'm really enjoying it. The weather's great. Getting a bit sunburnt, but having to give our canvassing teams sun cream to put on when we go out to canvassing. Really good discussion and banter on the doorstep. I'm really enjoying it. I'll come back and report earlier next week because we've got lots of things that are happening over the next week or so. And we've just delivered a letter from me. Leaflets are going out. Our election address has now been printed and that will go out by the Royal Mail, I think, next week, and then we'll have further leaflets. I'll be doing more letters to constituents, and we'll be building up to election day itself. I've been touring around all the churches, gurdwaras, mosques and community organisations last week to urge people to make sure they're on the register, and I'll be going back over the next couple of weeks now just to engage in more community discussions about issues within our area. If I get re-elected on May, a lot of the issues that have been raised on the doorstep now will set my agenda as a community socialist campaigner for the coming couple of years about how we go forward on tackling some of the local issues and how that should be reflected in Parliament when we debate the national policies. This is real community politics. It's what I describe as community socialism that we're developing in our area, and I think it's incredibly effective and people appreciate it. Anyway, that's my report for this week, and I'll come back maybe in the middle of next week and let people know how we're getting on.